Hey mamas, welcome to another episode of Confessions with Small Biz Mama. This month we're talking all about sales and marketing. And in this episode, we're going to talk about why all business is national. Okay, now I know what you're thinking, because if you listen to last week's episode, I just said all business is local. And I convinced you why you needed to have a local presence in your community. And now you're sitting there going, Kristen, and now you're telling me it has to be national. Like, what is going on? Okay, so here's the thing. The reason that you need to have a national presence or a virtual presence is because you never know who's going to want to buy from you. Okay. I remember when I got my first out-of-state client. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm in Connecticut. Like, I can't do this. And I had some clients. It's funny because I say for out of state. I had some clients in Massachusetts, but I was licensed in Massachusetts, right? Because as a CPA, you're licensed by state. And so I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I'm, licensed in Massachusetts, so that's okay. But then I got a client that was way out of state. And I'm like, now taxes are taxes, right? Bookkeeping is bookkeeping. If you're a virtual assistant or you're an executive assistant or you're a graphic designer, it doesn't matter where your clients are, right? But I think that sometimes we put up hurdles for people to work with us virtually. And so I want to talk about some of the hurdles that we have to get out of the way so that you can work with people anywhere. Okay. So first off, I know that the majority of you that listen, you're working from home. Okay. For those of you that have a storefront or a location, okay, you need to make it easy for people to find you online. You need to make it easy for people to order from you online. So, for example, I order flowers for people all over the country. And because I like sending flowers. And so typically what we'll try to do when we do that is we'll try to find a local florist, because I like working directly with florists. And I don't know if you know this or not, but when you order from an order gatherer, they typically take 20% off the top just for gathering the order. And so for small local florists, it really cuts into their profit margin when you order from, one of the big sites. And so, I try to find a local florist and order directly from them. But sometimes these florists, I'm telling you, they make it so hard to order from them. They don't answer their phone. They have terrible hours, especially like leading up to a holiday. They don't have like sample photos on their website of the possible things you could order. And so they just make it really, really difficult to order online. So you want to remove as much friction as you possibly can. Now, listen, you don't have to have an online order form, especially if you're a service-based business, but you definitely need to have information to make it easy for people to contact you if they want to work with you. So, make sure that you have a form on your website for people to fill out. Okay. Don't do the email me thing, because the problem is a lot of times when you put an email link, the email link will try to open Outlook, and most people don't use Outlook. Okay. So if you embed a form on your website, which is super easy to do, okay, then people can contact you directly, okay, instead of having to try to send you an email and figure that out and it doesn't open the right client, poof, gone, okay. You can also have a virtual phone number, like a Google number, that will allow people to leave a voicemail, but doesn't interrupt your flow. Okay. just critically, critically important. Make sure that you have a Facebook page that is active. I can't tell you how many times I go to Facebook pages, right, for businesses that even like where I just moved, and they don't have a post in like a year and a half. I'm like, is this business still open? I don't know. There's no activity on the page. And so you want to make sure that you're posting on a regular basis so people know that you're still around and that you're still active. Really, really important. Okay. And you want to do the same thing too, like if you're on LinkedIn or wherever else your business shows up, make sure that your information is current, right? So if you moved and your phone numbers have changed or your address has changed, make sure that you fix all that information. So that way the most accurate information is available there. That also goes for your hours as well. Make sure that your hours are accurate if you have them listed on Facebook or Google or anywhere else. So that way people, don't show up when you're closed. Okay. Also, I think that if you want to work with people anywhere in the country, it is, you can post about your business locally and what you're doing locally, but you don't want to be over focused on that either. So you want to make sure that, you're not hyper focused on your local community. So you can talk about what you're doing, you can talk about groups that you're in and things like that, but you also want to focus on a broader area as well. Okay. I just think that that's, it's really important. Even if you want to get the majority of your clients locally, I think it's really important to be in some business groups with a broader focus, because it's just going to give you some different perspective. I remember when I started working with businesses in other parts of the country, and you realize, even that like tax structure is so different. So living in Massachusetts and Connecticut, most of, we paid income taxes, we paid property taxes on our cars, which most people are like, what do you mean property tax on your car? So in Connecticut and in Massachusetts, called excise tax, but it's essentially the same thing. You pay, how like if you own a home, you have real estate taxes based off the value of your home. Well, we also paid that on our cars, okay, in Connecticut and Massachusetts, where you actually pay a tax to your town or your county based off of the value of your car. We have very simple sales tax in New England, where it's very rare that there's a local sales tax that's collected, where in lots of parts of the country that's just a normal thing. And so joining these national groups and getting exposed to businesses all over the place, or even just sometimes the mentality is different. In New England, everything moves really quickly. It does. Okay. And down here in Florida, that is not the case. We were at the mall last night, and the mall closed at 7:00 on Saturday night. I was like, 7:00? What is that? Like in some parts of New England, the mall would close at like 11:00 on Saturday night. And now other stores were open later or whatever, but it was just kind of weird. Like, we're like, why? Oh, because the mall is closing. Oh, geez. Things you just don't think about when, but I think it's really important to kind of get exposure to other places, to other types of businesses. And I think it's, if you want to niche down, then having a more national or regional presence makes that a lot easier. Because if you want to focus on a particular type of business, like let's say you want to work with, let's say you want to work with florists, right? There's only going to be so many florists in your town, right? And so if you say, well, I want to work with florists and I'm going to work with florists nationally, and I'm really going to learn, all the ins and outs of the FTD software and, and the Teleflora software. And I'm really going to learn like how this whole thing works and how the fee structure works, and so that I can be a good bookkeeper for these types of businesses. Can you tell that I've had floral clients before? Then, it's much easier to do that if you have a national clientele. Same thing as like, if you want to, I think, I can't remember. I know we were talking about Shopify one day in Bookkeeper Training School, WooCommerce. We've talked about like if you want to specialize in like WooCommerce. But there's lots of different types of businesses that you can specialize in, but that might mean that you need to have a national, a national presence. And also too, it's like, when you work with virtual businesses that are used to working with people all over the country, it can sometimes be a lot easier to sign with businesses like that, because they're used to working with people all over the place. Okay. So I know it's really funny that I just did an episode all about how, you need to be a local business, and you need to be involved in your local community. But, one of the amazing things about what we do, and I think the pandemic has made this all a lot easier, we have the ability to work with anyone, anywhere, right? Whether it's we're looking for clients anywhere, or, we're hiring people to work for us from anywhere. It's just amazing what is available to us. But you've got to get out there and find the opportunity. And so if you're wondering, well, okay, how do I find clients, nationally? So, I love, again, knowing your ideal client, who you want to work with. I'm a big fan of networking in Facebook groups, and really just being friendly, being nice. If you listen to the episode I did 2 weeks ago about discovery calls, right? It's not about being salesy. It's about getting to know people, being helpful, being nice. Most people want to work with somebody that they like and trust, right? And if you're salesy, they're not going to trust you. So, when I look for Facebook groups to join, I'm looking for groups that are really active, but I'm looking for groups that are not super big. I'm looking for groups that have less than 5,000 people in them. My kind of sweet spot is between 3,000 and 5,000, with people who are active, right? Because if people aren't active, there's no posting, and there's going to be nothing to interact with. And so that's really key. You want to go where your ideal customer is hanging out. There's so many business groups on Facebook. It's craziness. You can find a group for everything now. And if you can't find one, you can start one. On LinkedIn, what I like to do on LinkedIn is, when you set up your account, connect all of your email accounts, and then look for people who are on LinkedIn. And then once you send invites to them and they accept, then you can see their networks. And so a lot of times that's a great way to get outside your local area, is through the people that your contacts are connected with. And so what I'm looking for is, I'm either looking for people who are in the area that my ideal client is in, or they are connectors. And connectors are people who know a lot of people, know a lot of business owners, and can help connect you with other people. Okay, so that's how I use LinkedIn. You can also, I'm super excited, Clubhouse is now on Android. So Clubhouse is a voice only app where you can join rooms, you can raise your hand, you can create your own room. So basically it's almost like the old like party line telephone systems where it's just like a whole bunch of people that are like listening in. It's almost like on demand talk radio. Where people just like create a room and like, hey, we're talking about this, and you can raise your hand, and you can ask a question or you can comment. I was listening one the other day with Brendan Burchard, Anthony Trucks, Mel Robbins was in it. It was crazy. All the folks that were in this room. And just like listening and having them like talking about like relationships, and it was such a cool thing. I was in one the other day with Dr. Anthony Fauci was doing one the other day, and it was very, very cool to, I think because, people are literally just like talking into their phone, that it's like a little bit more casual than like when you're watching people like either in like a YouTube interview or a Facebook Live, or I don't know. It's like, I think when you strip away the video piece, it's almost like podcasts, right? That it's deeper, right? And so that's a really cool platform that you can get involved in. It's invite only right now, so you got to find somebody that has invites. If you're in Empower Bookkeeper Network, I know that we kind of have something going, and I'm giving out a lot of my invites that way. So that's another really cool way to connect with people anywhere. Instagram is a good way to find people. It's just, you just have to kind of put yourself out there, do searching, do digging. There's also, there are national groups as well that you can join, like we're members of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. You can get involved with, I know Forbes has an entrepreneurs group that we're in. You can join mastermind groups. There's really just a ton of different ways that you can connect with business owners, either free or paid. And I do find that when you're in paid groups, the quality of the group is typically a little bit better. There's people have skin in the game to be in them. So, and a lot of these groups do, they're, let's say, a couple $100 a year, or, maybe it's like $37 a month. But the level of connection that you can make is much better. Okay. So hopefully you got some ideas from that. Hopefully you're starting to think, okay, so what's my local strategy going to be? What's my national strategy going to be? How can I identify some groups where I can do some good at the local level, I can do some good at the national level, and I can grow my business both ways. Okay, so if you have not listened to last week's episode, please make sure that you do so, because I think it'll give you some interesting ideas. Because here's the thing, right? You really want to have like a multi-pronged approach, so that, I can't tell you how many times, like, maybe our local economy hasn't been doing well, but nationally things are going well, or vice versa. And so by being able to pivot and say, you know what, I'm going to spend more time on local clients right now, because we're doing okay here. That really gives you the opportunity to make your business recession proof. And that's pretty awesome. All right, mamas, let me know what you think. You can send us your email questions or your thoughts at podcast@smallbizmama.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. Hey, mamas, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Small Biz Mama with Kristen Ingram. If you'd like to learn how to create more margin in your life, please visit us at smallbizmama.com. That's smallbizmama.com.